right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our pilot episode of the Church Encourager podcast. This podcast is going to do a couple things. It's going to encourage people who need encouragement involved with churches as part of the Church Encourager movement that we are working on here. And what it's really going to do is for Dad and I give us a place to go through these discussion guides we have at our church, Keys Vineyard Church. So every weekend we have this discussion guide that comes up after the sermon. And so, Tuesdays we'll go through this discussion guide, and the hope would be that you could follow along with us through this discussion guide. We'll kind of hang out with the questions of it and encourage others to really take these and have their own small group times, however they can, just in a really simple way. So we have one of these come out basically every week, and we'll do these podcasts on Tuesdays. I'd also encourage you to check out our Online Bible Institute Network podcast that comes out most Thursdays, except for the Thursdays where we don't post. And that one will get ready for the weekends, and also join us for the weekend sermons as well. So really, there's 3 opportunities to dive into each message, starting on Thursday, and then you have the weekend, and then Tuesday will be a nice recap. But anyway, we had the privilege of having our dear friend Pastor Kevin Fisher preach this last weekend. I'm sorry, I don't know why my camera keeps bugging out, but the audio is working, so I'm just going to move through. I have a cheap little Amazon thing, and that's probably needing to be turned off and on again, but we're going to muscle through. Pastor Kevin Fisher was with us this last weekend, and he talked about the importance of being thankful in our relationships and being grateful for people, and that how our gratitude leads to joy. And he gave us a lot of key points on praying for others. But that first point was be grateful for others. And so Dad, I'll let you kind of take over here. How does practicing gratitude change our perspective on relationships?
Yeah, there's something about being thankful that really changes perspective on everything. And so it was good to hear it worked into the message this week. Kevin did a great job. And, he was talking about these relational rhythms that we have from Philippians chapter 1, and just in those few verses. But gratitude is something that we've stressed, we've tried to stress for years. We always call it be thankful for 5 things, encourage 2 people so we can get one lost child back to dad. That we've been doing for a very long time. And there's something about starting your days being thankful, like thankful for what you have because the other thing that people, instead of being thankful for what they have, they sort of get concerned about what they don't have. Mm-hmm. And that isn't a good spot to be, because you're thinking about what other people have or whatever, and you get lost in that. And when the reality is the joy that Kevin talked about ties in with gratitude is about, okay, let's just be thankful for what it is and for what's real and for where I'm at. And I've always told, even in the hardest of times, you can find, we've always done it, you can find 5 things that you're thankful for. And if you can, if you find something you're thankful for, even if you're getting down to, I'm thankful at this moment for, this next breath that the Lord has given me, or, that my life with him, but there's always something, and that helps. And so you can carry that over into your relationships, and being thankful. I thought it was good that he talked about, that if you're not being grateful, you start taking people for granted. And I like that. That was a good thing, because we don't want to take anybody for granted or anything for granted. And right. I think it's certainly important that we're careful to be grateful in the Lord, so we don't start to take him for granted and the things that he's doing, because he's amazing. So really that's me. It's a great reminder to stay focused on what is and what you're grateful for, rather than letting your mind go to what it isn't, and what you wish it could be. And those expectations that we often put on people, they never work. They just, when you start to put expectations on people, they're going to fail you, because the reality is we don't even live up to the expectations we put on ourselves.
Sure.
So it's a switch, I think, that's very important there.
Yeah, that's great. So, it's certainly helpful to be grateful for people. It changes everything. In his second point, Pastor Kevin this weekend, he gave us prayer points on things to actually pray for people. Pray that they would grow in love, that they would make wise choices, that they would live in integrity, and that they would live like Jesus. Do any of those four resonate with you, and why?
Yeah, well, at some level, they all resonate.
Of course.
Yeah, I think, again, so they're very much tied together. Um, I like the idea of wise choices, and I think part of that is because I'm sorry when your
I,
camera
I know the no
when
the
it
no
phased
signal.
out the picture on your face was really funny. You were like in a squint. Anyway, so I had to chuckle. I'm sorry.
It was actually funny. You were talking, and that went out. I'm in my office, and right in front of my desk is a window, and then there's just a pigeon like doing this,
Uh,
like right in front of me. I was like, huh.
that's good.
Anyway,
So I
back
was
to the
gonna,
prayer points.
yeah, I was going to say it's about choices for me, and I think that's probably because we've been spending the last year and a half talking about choices, in particular the trees, right? That
Hmm.
there's God's way and there's our way, and wise choices would be choosing God's way, and then out of that comes all those other things. Out of that comes integrity and Christ-likeness, and loving then, but it's really about the choices that we make, and I think that's a great thing to pray for people that they would make wise choices. They would choose to not go, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil route, but they would go God's way route and really choose Him and yield to Holy Spirit and the way He empowers us to make those good choices. And certainly the prayer backup from people that love us would be a big deal because that it's making those poor choices that causes so much aggravation in our lives. And how often we think, I didn't need that. So such a stupid choice.
Yeah.
And
And so often our unwise choices are trying to fix a problem as quickly as possible. I feel like that's something that plagues people of my generation as well as most generations, really. I will fix that camera adapter here right after this recording.
we'll plug
It blinks
through.
out. And,
Yeah,
rather than make a rash decision of going back there and doing that, I will deal with it here shortly.
yeah.
But yeah, really good. His third point, which I thought really hit home, was that it's so important to encourage people and tell them that you believe in them. So, what are some practical steps that we can take to show people we believe in them?
Um, I think a really important one there is listening to people. I don't.
Hmm.
That's where I come from with that is that can you allow people to talk and then listen? Really listen and hear them, and that's a big deal because most people aren't very good at listening. We Most of us have a tendency to figure out what we want to say very quickly in a conversation. And then we just kind of pause long enough to interject it without ever really listening to what the other person is saying or thinking or might just need to talk about.
Mm.
So I think that when we listen to them, it validates them, which is a way of saying that you do believe in them and you care about them because that's an important deal. One of the things I said as I introduced Kevin and Debbie have been a huge source of encouragement to me and to Alice on this journey. And there were times when it was just him sort of saying, "You're going to make it," that gave me something to hang on to because it
Mm.
wasn't always easy by a long shot. And so I think listening well and then actually giving words to people. We can be very stingy with our words,
Hmm.
and we need to encourage. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot extra, but for some reason and the things he said, you need to be telling your kids, I believe in you. You need to tell your friends. You need to, you just never know who needs to hear that, and carry on. You're going to make it. Proud of you. All those things make a big difference, I think. But you have to be intentional about it, and that's also part of getting out of the world revolving around you. If we get lost in us being the main deal in our story, then other people aren't. They don't get the place they should. They just sort of become bit players in our story instead of, we're kind of it's his story, and he really values these people around us, and those that he's placed in our lives. That we have responsibilities for our spouses and our children and our friends and those. It's incumbent on us to speak words of life and speak encouragement and to sort of offset some of the negative stuff that is pounding us from everywhere else. Because and Kevin made a great point. You can hear 100 good things or 99 good things, one negative thing, and you'll focus on the negative.
On the negative. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think it's important that we're hearing from people, and we're taking in what they have to say and really listening.
Man, good stuff. Lots of practical things there. I will include in the comments of this podcast, if my camera comes back, there we go, a link to this discussion guide. And I think it's going to be very helpful for us all to work through these. And, we can either do it along with us. We're obviously only taking a few of the questions. There's more in there. Help yourselves to think through those. But yeah, what a cool thing. Really, really excited about this. Thank you, Dad, for your practical input and for always believing in me. It's a big deal. And I believe in y'all to do the discussion guides and be with us Thursday for our Online Bible Institute podcast as well. But again, thank you. This is the Church Encourager podcast. We'll see you next time.